This is the first time we've had second time we've had 6 people. Well, who am I kidding? We're filming in the same day, so
Yeah,
we got 6 people.
We're all wearing the same clothes. Acting like
It's a week for you, but it's about 10 minutes for us.
If people aren't watching, then they wouldn't know that. But we got 6 people with us again today. We got John, Luke, Jacob, Reeves, Parker, and Luke, and myself, the host. So welcome back to the podcast, and we are going to dive into your questions and hope that we can answer them and that you feel like things we said was sort of beneficial. So let's get into it. First question is, what is your favorite parable of Jesus? Jacob?
Parable of Jesus,
Like
or
parable that
of
Jesus
the story
parable
of
of
Jesus?
yeah, a parable
Jesus.
that Jesus told.
I'm going to pass this one off to Luke Daddy.
Were we popcorn?
You could have just said like the. You could have.
Oh, yeah,
said,
popcorn reading to
Like, you
Luke.
could have just said the prodigal son.
My bad, prodigal son.
Why?
No, I'm just kidding.
Nah.
All right, I'll start.
Yeah.
I said the lost sheep, to where Jesus is saying, talking about how you'd leave the 99 to go after the one, and just for me in my life where I used to be crazy, and kind of right when I was coming out of that, Corey Asbury's song "Reckless Love" came out, and just the idea of God abandoning the 99 to go after the one, really just spoke to me, and I love that story. So, the parable of the lost sheep is one of my favorites, but I also have many others, but I'll say that one for now. Anybody else?
I was going to say the shrewd manager because I'm edgy, but I actually think probably the prodigal son.
Parable of the Sower for me. I think that's a really good one. I remember reading it in college, and there was this commentary by J.C. Ryle, who's really good. He's from a couple hundred years ago, but he has a really good commentary on the Book of Mark. But it really just stuck out to me, just the way that we all have a real response to the gospel. Not only initially, but as we continue on in our journey, we can continue to receive the word, or we can let other things distract us. Like, it's just such a real thing that we all continue to walk out or struggle with, is how do we respond to God's word? Mm-hmm. So it's always stuck with me.
That was my other favorite one too.
I guess I'll try to do something a little different. I don't know.
I got one. What's the one you just said?
Parable of the Sower.
What's that one?
The seeds.
The seeds, like God's
They
word.
throw the seeds out, and some land on thorns, and they die.
Oh, okay. But mine's the one where there's the talents to the servants, like where they dig the little hole and that's what I think about, bro. That's what I think about. That's where I go back to. I could have said Cain and Abel. Man, come on.
That's not a parable.
I almost did say that. I was thinking about that for a joke. But no, for real, like just what you do with what God gives you, and like if you're just sitting on it, like digging a hole and living, or you like multiplying the things He gives you.
Yeah.
Does. So
It's good.
Mm-hmm.
Reeves.
That was the one I was going to say. Yes. I think it goes, last week we talked about purpose, and that's just been an area of, searching in a lot of seasons of my life. And I think ultimately, like, we just need to glorify God with what we're doing. And for me, that parable is just a good check for me of like, maybe I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing at certain seasons. But all I know that I can do is, whether I'm working a job in the, just corporate workplace, or working a ministry job, I think it's easy to get confused and think that, for me to fulfill a purpose that God wants me to fulfill, I got to go into ministry. But no, I think on the contrary, we actually need more Christians in the workplace.
Yes.
And so, like, just like that parable, you can just pull a theme out of it and just say, you know what, I'm just going to glorify God with whatever I'm doing, and if He does lead me to ministry, then I will do that. And I'll glorify God with all that I do in that too.
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's good.
Something that stuck out to me in that parable lately is, obviously you could say that everyone's been given a different amount of material things, I guess, and then trust from the Lord. But I feel like, man, we have all been entrusted with a lot.
Right.
You can say it's, that whatever it is, 0 and 5 or 10 talents, whatever they said, or 1, 5, and 10. No, they didn't give them 0. But yes, I understand there's different levels, and there's truth to that. But I felt if we all saw it as, man, we've all been entrusted with a lot from God. because we have. Like,
Right.
Yeah,
that's just
for
the honest
sure.
truth. Are we a good steward of that?
Mhm.
Like
Right.
we are. It's funny. I heard Dave Ramsey say the other day, like we're God's manager here on earth with the things we've been entrusted to. So we're going to be a faithful manager of what He's given us to steward.
Yeah.
Right.
Because if we see what we have is valuable, then we're going to act more appropriately on that, right?
Right,
But if we
right.
see what we have is it's not worth very much
Yeah.
or whatever, who cares what
Yeah.
happens
Yeah.
to it? You know. So,
No, that's good.
anyways, I feel like I've learned that lately from that parable.
Yeah. No, and he was saying that. I don't want to go back to the last pocket, but the purpose thing, it just made me think, like, people ask, like, let's just say I'm asking for something, but it's like, are you stewarding whatever that is, whether it's one thing, like, are you
Yeah.
stewarding that right before your purpose now? Like, because you're not going to have purpose if God gives you 5 more things, you can't even steward one thing.
Right.
Like, how am I going to take care of 2 dogs if I can't take care of one? So it's like the same thing. Like, that's
He who's
just good.
trusted with a little will be trusted.
Yeah,
with a
exactly.
lot.
Right,
So it's
exactly.
like, to find purpose, you got to take care of what you got now.
What you going against the grain of?
The parable of the mustard seed, and I was thinking about I know, just bear with me on this.
That's a good one.
But I was thinking about just when you're a new believer, and I think if you're listening to this, like that we all start with a very, very minute amount of faith, right? When we start following Jesus. And so obviously with this parable, it's talking about something so small, but can change the world. And it goes on to talk about how the seed starts with, like, obviously very small, but it grows into this big plant. In the same way with what our faith does, right? It talks about how when the tree grows, it provides shade for the birds. It provides a place for them to live. And so I think that's the same thing. Like, that's representing the kingdom of God. And so, like, more like as believers and followers of Jesus, if that's what our lives look like, then we should be providing love and joy and, like, all comfort for people that are living in this world, right? And so, in the world. But yeah, I don't know. I wrote down a couple others that y'all had kind of talked about, but I think for me, that's so impactful to know, like, if you are just now following Jesus, know it starts with something very small. And I think we talked about doubt, and especially early in your faith, that's where you see more doubt, right? And you don't trust Jesus with all you have. But over time, as we water those seeds and as we get into community and we do Bible studies and we get into the Word, we start to grow, and that's where we do start leaning into God more. So yeah, I like that one. That was good for me.
One of my before we move on, I just thought about this other parable that I love, but I'm not gonna probably say the right name of it. But it's the one where it's the same wages for the different people that have worked the different hours.
Yeah.
I just think that's one of the most relatable parables, because it's, we all feel entitled to something, right? And the idea of you working 10 hours and then getting paid the same as somebody who showed up for the last 2 hours to work, you feel some sense of because Jesus was like, that's the sort of the parable is like, well, you signed up for this wage, right? So but then you're getting paid the same as somebody who's worth less. So I don't know, I think that just calls out entitlement and just expectations of things. But I love that story and that parable. But all right, I feel like we can all speak to this one a little bit. I think it's a good question, especially for guys. But it says wisdom on waiting for the right woman that God desires for me while having a hard time with my past.
All right. I like this one. I feel like a lot of people are in that place. I feel like I know I was in that place, struggling with your past, right, and reconciling the consequences of that, but also the shame and guilt and trying to move through that. But I feel like it's kind of one answer kind of to both sides in my mind. But I feel like if you focus a lot more on just becoming the man that God's called you to be, more than you're trying to focus on finding like the right person, that's really ultimately going to get you where you want to be in the long run. Because if you're not the man that you need to be in a relationship, then even if you find the right girl, you're not where you need to be. So it doesn't really make a difference. So I think in that process, when you're trying to be a more godly man, God's going to confront those things in you. You're going to go through healing. You're going to need to confess. You're going to need to grow, which is, again, ultimately going to lead you to be in the right place to receive the woman that God has for you.
Yeah.
But I feel like people get stuck up. I got to find the right girl. I got to find the right girl. Well, what are you doing to be the right guy?
Right guy.
I feel like that's just so often
Yeah,
the
that's
focus
good.
focus is on the wrong thing.
Yeah.
I know I've been there. I know a lot of us been there, especially sitting in college. You know, when there's that outward pressure. But
It's important to me that the supplements I take are of the highest quality, and that's why for the last 3 years I've been drinking AG1. Unlike many supplement brands, AG1 is constantly searching for how to do things better. At 52 iterations of their formula and counting, their team is always trying to find the best ways to source, test, and aim to find the best quality ingredients available. And quality for AG1 is not just a buzzword. It's a commitment backed by expert-led scientific research, high-quality ingredients, industry-leading manufacturing, and rigorous testing. At each step of the process, AG1 goes above and beyond industry standards. And I know that I can trust what's in every scoop of AG1 because it's tested for 950 contaminants and banned substances, while the industry standard typically only tests for 10. And taking care of my health should not be complicated. And AG1 simplifies this by covering my nutritional bases and setting myself up for success in just 60 seconds. AG1's ingredients are heavily researched for efficacy and quality. And I love that every scoop also includes prebiotics, probiotics, and digestive enzymes for gut support. And I've been partnered with AG1 for so long because they make such a high quality product that I genuinely look forward to drinking every single day. AG1 is a supplement that I love to drink every single morning before I work out or even just before I get the day started. It is a product that means a lot to me because it helps with my gut health. It helps me with I feel like it helps with my recovery. It helps give me energy and focus throughout the day. A lot of times in the morning, I don't like taking caffeine early, especially before I work out if it's early, like most mornings are. And AG1 just helps me get my day started. I think it tastes delicious. I love to drink it with cold water, just one scoop in a glass every single morning. And I've been partnered with AG1 for so long because they make such a high quality product that I genuinely look forward to drinking every single day. So if you want to replace your multivitamin and more, start with AG1. So try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 plus K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase subscription at drinkag1.com/Huff. Yeah, I think keyword is past. I think there needs to be a moment where, that's the past and that's not, your present. So I love that because, you do have to, become the man that you want to become. There was a moment where, yes, I did a lot of stupid things, but there was a moment where there was conviction from that. There was repentance, and then there was a solid year where I turned from all that to where I'm now pursuing, things to where I can be in a relationship because I'm no longer living the way that I used to live. So I think just having your past truly be your past and not, letting that become your current situation for where you're at. Wisdom, waiting for the right woman that God desires for me.
Said wisdom. Said
yes.
Wisdom for the. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's just like it's just really comes down to patience and trust in God. Like all of us, let's just throw a caveat here for your listeners. Everyone sitting around this table got married relatively young.
Mm-hmm.
Like we all didn't have to wait that long to have great wives, but like my friends in college, some of the godliest men that I know, like I respect them so much, and most of them have been getting married in like the last year, so like late 20s, early 30s, and I just watched them just really not worry about it.
Just live.
I mean, there was doubts and there was times we would talk about it. For the most part, they were like, God's put me in this place, and like I don't have a wife, so I'm gonna do, whatever my God's putting in front of me right now. We talked about this in the last episode. Trusting where you are, trusting the opportunities that God's bringing you, and just not worrying about it. Really,
I feel like all the things intertwine. Like all these questions we've answered so far is all intertwined.
And I think, my point is like the wisdom being just seeing examples of godly men who got married later, or just saying, they have great wives, great lives. Just feeling solidarity with them. That was an example of God coming through.
Sure. And you said in that question, you said like, how do you deal with? He's asking like, how do you deal with your past?
Well, it says it's like if you've had a bad past, how do you have wisdom on like waiting for the right one that God desires for you?
This is gonna sound so simple. I just like when I think about that, because like I mean, just like you said, like I've had my past, fair share of past, like definitely dabbled in things very unholy, obviously. But I'm saying like being honest, like just being honest with your past. I mean, like it's a number one thing that made me overcome past, and like just being honest. Like I'm not scared to sit here and tell y'all my sins. Like it's not a secret. Like it's not something that I'm hiding. Like it is who I was in that time period, but that doesn't mean it's who I am now. So I feel like the first step in like finding a good woman is like somebody said this earlier. Like, you shouldn't even be worried about a woman if you're like can't deal with your past. You should just figure out your past head on. You know, with brothers and with Jesus and whoever that looks like. I'm not saying your grandma can't help you. You don't only have to be men. I'm just saying just dealing with that head on, and that's how I would say it. I wouldn't even worry about a girl like Bella. It just happened. Like I was never planning on Bella happening.
Well, and the simplest thing is like the right woman that God desires for you is going to be the woman that, you know,
Loves it all.
loves your past.
Yeah.
Or like maybe does not love the decision you made, but like that does not hinder the relationship.
No.
So if you're with somebody and there's, you know, skeptical about your past, or they, you know, they can't see past that, no pun intended, then they're not the right woman. They're not the right person for you.
Exactly.
You know? So like answering your own question, the right woman that God desires for me, while having a hard time with my past, the right woman for you is going to be one that accepts your past that sees past it.
Right, and that doesn't mean you won't deal with the consequences of your past, because we all do. I still do today. I still will deal with it today. But my point is like that person will love you. You'll share your story to them, and they will say, "Hey, I still love you through all those things, and we can still move forward. Like it's not a hindrance.
Yeah.
Like, I know who you are now. Like through God called you to be."
And to that same point, I feel like you're gonna have to do the same thing for them.
Exactly.
You know?
Like
And
we're not all perfect.
No.
Like I don't know about y'all, but I don't know. Many times I've shared stories with people, and then they throw in a nugget from their life that you never knew because they felt vulnerable in that situation. So
I'm gonna guess too that the person that asked this question is also kind of wondering or wanting to know what does it look like finding that person that God desires for you. And maybe you didn't. I know somebody else is thinking that. I would say you're not going to find the person that God desires for you is not going to be found at the bar.
I knew it.
Or at a fraternity party or at
more than likely,
it's probably going to be found when you start serving in a community of believers. It's like if you want to find somebody that is also pursuing God, you need to go to places where people are pursuing God.
Yep.
Like not.
Good.
So I think there's just a lot of people these days that are like, you know, there's that whole idea of like finding somebody and then coming to Christ together. Like maybe it'll work. Yeah. But I just cut to the chase.
Seen that
Chat. Recipe for disaster.
I mean, it's just not gonna go every time the way that you think it will.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to get involved at church and
sounds
like,
good on paper.
There's the cliche saying that every college pastor probably says. It's when you're running after God and you look to the left and someone else is too. That's when you find them, and that's true. I mean, it is.
I think Ben Stewart said that.
I mean, I'm sure tons of people have said that.
My grandmother
like,
told me that too.
It's true though. I mean, it's kind of cliche.
My dog told me that.
Parker's grandma was just saying that Ben Stewart.
I'm serious. That's really annoying to hear if you have been pursuing God and you're like, true. I'm not seeing them. That's and that's totally fair.
Yeah.
But at some point, like that does come true, and so I would just say, hang on, just focus on God, and that'll come.
That's good. But also too, in the same way, I've seen situations where, you know, you definitely don't want to be the dude that has a past, and then you meet somebody, and they accept your past, and then they share their past to you, and then you don't accept it.
Yeah.
I've seen situations like that. And it's like, do not be that d-bag. That I'm being serious. That like a woman accepts your past, but then she's made her own mistakes, and then you're like, I'm out on that. Like,
like who are you?
Yeah, like it's so. You know, if you meet somebody who has been through similar things as you have, you know,
it's a two-way street.
It's a two-way street. If they extend grace to you, but then you think you're above that, don't play that game.
Like their sins are greater than yours.
Yeah, we're not saying that you just because they share their past and like it has to work out. Like it's just communicate and reciprocate compassion. Like we all have our own stories.
We all
like
need to
God
extend
created
grace.
us all, and we all lived out a different path. Like you don't have to, look down on somebody because they didn't do something or do something that you wanted them to have, like as in a standard for the relationship. So
because it can't, like, that's the thing. It's, it can be just as hurtful for them as it is for you to have, to have to go through those things with people's past. But like, there is, a humanness to that of having, your feelings hurt by a decision that your spouse or this person that you're pursuing made in the past. But don't, I think that's the thing. It's like, if they accept you, if they accept your past, don't view sins that this other person made, they're greater than the mistakes that you made. So, but then again, like with that, there is a humanness that that might upset you or whatever. But don't.
That makes you think of
what?
Don't hate the player, hate the game. You know what I'm saying?
Not really.
No, I just meant like I was just joking, but I just meant like don't hate the person, like hate the sin. Like that's just sin.
Yeah, that's
that's all it is. Sin.
True.
I was just saying that for a joke, but it is. It's true.
Point,
it's the same thing. It's
I
like,
get what you're saying.
don't hate like the brother. Hate the sin that's brought into the world. Like obviously, that's like
That's what I'm saying. Like I've just seen the arrogance in that of like, this person accepts all the junk that you've had, and then they share it, and then it's like, oh, I don't want.
yeah, that's so chow.
It's like don't.
I'm just saying, like, think about sharing your story with somebody, like even like as a brother to brother, and then this dude's just like, I don't want to hang out with you. Like, thanks, man. I really appreciate that.
Luke, you like you're brewing on something over here.
No,
Luke's just flipping pages.
He's brewing on laughter over
well,
there.
no,
He's our bookkeeper.
I was thinking. Everybody needs to.
Hey, Luke, you got Luke 2:8 on schedule, son?
No, I was thinking about contentment. I'm just thinking about in life because, like John Lucas said, there's no men, and I think women struggle with it too more than men do, especially the older they get.
Right.
But so even if you're a woman listening to this, I think when God calls us to like having full contentment of where we're at. So, anyways, Timothy writes this. It's 1 Timothy. I think it's 6. Yeah, 6:6. It says, "But godliness with contentment is great gain. For when we brought nothing into the world, we can't take anything out of it." So I think having that mindset of just putting that in a relationship standpoint of being content exactly where we're at and being like seeking that, and obviously it's Matthew 6:33, seeking first the kingdom and all else will be great. And so when I think of all else will be added to you, if God knows the thoughts and intentions of our hearts, he knows we want a spouse. But until we're ready, and this is what I've always been, I guess, mentored about, is like, God's not going to provide his daughter to you until you're ready to treat her and take care of her like he has, right? And so regardless of where she's at and where you're at, like as God designed this for man and woman, he designed us to lead in the capacity that he says, love your wife as I've loved the church. And so we have a big responsibility when we take that on, because it's now we're comparing the type of love that Jesus laid down his life for the church, and the same thing, that's what we're supposed to do for our spouse. Until we're ready to have that selfless attitude of, I'm willing to wake up and die to self and then die to my wife, her needs, and all the things. So I know contentment was a thing that I've always had to, like, being content on where you're at and like where God has put you in, because he tells us that's great gain in that. And so I think we can miss a lot of opportunities in ministry when you are single, because we are looking for, we see our buddies and they're all getting married, and but man, God's plans are, the way we look at them are on this plane but he's looking at this level. So it's I don't know, that was something good for me to point out, contentment.
That's good.
Amen, brother.
And just for the people listening, if people get wigged out, Timothy did not write Timothy. It was Paul writing to Timothy. Yeah. Just to clarify that for somebody listening.
Yeah, what did I say?
You said Timothy writes.
Oh, yeah. Well, Paul was speaking to him as a son, too. And I think that's a big thing to understand. A father kind of talking down to a son of like, hey, like coming from me, know that being content on where you're at, it's okay to be where you're at, because that Paul lived that out, right? Like he had been through that. So I think like we can sit here as married men and say like all these things, but like we also were single at one point. So anyways, yeah, thanks for pointing that out. I guess I should have clarified.
All right, next question. I'm struggling with having random lustful thoughts pop up in my head. What do I do? Anybody want to start that?
Pray. Think about something else. I mean, that's like, I feel like that's a forever thing. I mean,
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, I was just about to say when you said
like,
that. Me too.
Yeah, like,
Pretty sure we all do.
yeah.
That's nature of man.
This is not necessarily with random thoughts, but this is like, it kind of is. Just thinking about just like lust in general and how it kind of aligns with self-control. And if you find yourself having lustful thoughts or things pop in your head or whatever, like that's part of like a larger thing, like of your whole life. So like, what is the habits that you're doing in your life? Like, in what ways can you change your habits and change your literal schedule to, avoid moments that you know that you're gonna struggle in?
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I think, and this is even just like advice that I've heard, and I've done this in my life. If I ever am struggling with that or have a thought, I'll just out loud say, "Nope." Now let's move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, but it is, you're all gonna, and I think having people around you that, one, obviously the Bible says to take every thought captive in obedience to Christ. So there's the aspect of it too where, there's a difference between, I think, struggling with a lustful thought and lingering in a lustful thought.
Yeah.
Because struggling with a lustful thought is you see something that pops in your head and then you immediately, you kind of turn away from it or you say no or something like that.
You're actually
versus
fighting against it.
yeah, you're fighting against it versus kind of sitting in it and like, hypothetically thinking about a situation. Like, so I think like it's kind of just what comes after you have that thought.
Yeah.
But I think you also got to surround yourself with people that you can, call and confess things with of, hey, I not only did I have this thought, but I lingered on it longer.
Right.
And I thought about it and I just want to call and confess that to you. So
Yeah.
you can pray for me.
No,
So
that's good.
it's kind of,
No, I
there's-
love that.
There's
That's
an
really
ongoing
good.
battle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But are you actively fighting against
Yeah.
it when you
It
have
like
it?
made me think, like, because obviously we all have phones today, like we all have social media. It's like seeing something on the Explore page, that just like pops up there, and it's like you see it, and it's like, what do? Do you run from it, or do you click on it, and then do you click on the page, and then do you scroll down the page, and then,
Right.
like that's what it made me think of. I was like, that's just good.
Yeah.
That's really
That's
good.
kind of what I was getting at. Like,
Yeah.
if that's when you're having if it's TikTok or Instagram or whatever, it's like, well, let's change our habits.
Right.
Another thought, and y'all might actually disagree with me on this. I don't know. Just thought of this. To me, it's like just to make it clear, like sexual desire is not bad or evil.
Yeah.
Like even God places it in the context of marriage, but having that initial like desire is like a natural part
Right.
of life. That's
Humans.
Right.
humans.
Right.
Like we have a sexual desire, and that is a good thing in and of itself. In the same way that like anger can be a good thing. Like there
Right.
is righteous anger. Like
Right.
being able to be
Right.
angry is a good thing. But then it's how you react to it.
Yeah,
Like,
no, that's good.
do you when we talked about a few episodes ago about like cussing and just controlling the tongue in general, of like when
Right.
you have that anger or that pain, what comes out of your mouth
Right.
is from an overflow.
Right.
Like, can you control what comes out of your mouth?
Yeah.
In the same way, like having that thought having that thought isn't evil, but then it's
How do you use it?
How do you use
Yeah.
it? Can you take control
Yeah.
of it?
No, that's so true.
And we don't have the willpower to do that. Comes from God and not from us.
yeah. No,
I
that's
think
good.
there's two types of scenarios that this is typically taking place in, and one is digital and one is in real life.
Yeah.
And so obviously there's the digital ones, which we've kind of hit on, and like if you're on social media or on your phone on the internet, like it's about identifying the problem. So like it's pretty easy to identify the sin issue if you're clicking and going and searching and digging. And so you have to turn away from that. That's where that action has to come into play of like, okay, I'm going to fight against this, or saying nope and then going and doing something else. But there's a really real scenario here. And like you said, I mean, we can kind of debate this and go back and forth. But if you're walking down the street with your significant other or not, whatever, by yourself, whatever, and a beautiful girl is walking towards you on the same side of the street, you're going to see the beautiful girl. Like you're like
Unavoidable.
like you're looking where you're walking. Like you're going to probably notice the beautiful girl.
Right.
It is what you do, like you said. Like, are you lingering on that? Like, there's nothing wrong with just looking at like
People.
you have to look at someone and say hi to them.
Yeah,
You have,
right.
like
People.
you have to look at someone to not walk into them. Like
Yeah.
you're going to look at them, but don't keep like don't turn around as they walk past you.
Right.
Like, don't keep looking.
Yeah.
Like, that's where you have to identify the problem, identify
Yes.
the sin,
That's good.
and know that it is sin. That's conviction.
Yeah.
Well, even in the question,
Really
like
good.
having random lustful thoughts, I think if you are having random lustful thoughts, I think you look at, you know, the inputs in your life, and like even like you just mentioned, if you can go on your explore page and it's, you know, women
Right.
in bikinis, and
Yeah.
like if it's inappropriate stuff, then I would argue that they're not really necessarily random lustful thoughts.
Yeah.
You're feeding
Because
it.
like you're just feeding it.
Yeah.
If it's like, you know, you're having these thoughts later, it's like, oh well, maybe it's because I was
Mhm.
searching this all day on social media.
You know
It's
what's
like,
crazy though? I'm glad you said that. It's crazy that like guys, let's just say you're following God. Like I'd say if you're following God right now and you have people on your Instagram like in bikinis, like whatever, like showing it, like whatever you want to call it. I'm not even saying like naked. I'm saying just like straight up like in bikinis or whatever. Like I would advise you like very highly to like unfollow those
Yes.
people because like I see people all the time that claim like it's just it didn't work out for me. Like it's
Yeah.
not good for me.
No.
Like I don't even follow family members or people like that. Mute them. Like get them off. Like
Yeah.
it's just everywhere these days. You let one person in,
That's
like
right.
one friend, like or your cousin. Like I'm not saying your cousin. I'm just saying like people like showing like just very. I guess it's accepted today. I don't know what
Yeah.
the word would be.
Go to who
it's
you're
not provocative.
following. Go to who you're following on social media, and if you're following any account with the person in a bathing in a swimsuit,
Yeah.
unfollow it.
Whether it's in the summer,
Yeah.
like they
Whoever
only do
it
it in the
is, it
summer, like
doesn't
just
matter. Like,
you don't
just
need
eliminate
it.
that. Like,
yeah.
That's
When
what
me and
got
Sadie
our
met,
age.
I did that. I went through everybody else I was following, and if there was any kind of just provocative picture, which it was not many of them because I never really followed those people, but like if it's for somebody, if it's like a
Right.
friend and it's like just in a bathing suit, then I just
Exactly.
unfollow it. It's like I
Yeah.
don't want that on my thing.
Like, when you get
If that's not working, take my advice and don't have social media at least for an amount of time.
Right.
Because on that digital side of what I was saying earlier, if you are scrolling through reels, you don't get to decide what's coming
Yeah,
next.
exactly.
I'm telling you, I've sat there with my wife and watched reels because there's funny stuff on there and there's like educational stuff on there.
Yeah.
But like the next one could be like something
That's right.
crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
So
That's random.
if you're looking on there all the time,
Right.
you're like, it's not even in your control.
Yeah.
You got to get off that.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to get off.
Yeah, what sacrifices are you willing to make to really eliminate that from your
Yeah.
life? You know?
Exactly.
There
How
shouldn't
bad,
be
how bad do
anything
you
you're
want it?
willing
How
to
free
give
do you
up.
want to be?
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny. That's what was trying to say earlier. Like, it's not someone being naked. It's like where's the point where this person's going to draw you into being lustful thoughts? Whether let's just say, I'm just saying, is it cleavage? Is it what they're wearing? Is it what they're showing off? Like, is it like what they represent? Like,
Yeah.
it could be a multitude of different things. Like, it doesn't have to be like, oh, they weren't naked. You know, a big deal. It wasn't porn. Like, I mean,
Right.
You're justifying it.
you're just justifying it.
Yeah.
There's a line
Right.
that doesn't need to be crossed.
Yeah.
Like,
And it,
that's
like
for sure.
y'all all kind of said, it's crazy how like acceptable a lot of that is. You know, like I
No,
know for-
bikini pictures
Well,
is like a thing these days.
I
That's
want to
like-
before we get off of this question and go too far into this, I want to say to the girls listening to this, like we're not like disparaging girls for wearing bikinis.
Yeah,
and
no,
wear,
no, no.
like
No.
that's not actually the problem. The
No,
problem
no,
is
no.
your own
View.
lust and sin
Yeah.
and
Right,
view
right.
of it. Like
Yep.
Jesus was abundantly clear on if you look at a girl and have lustful thoughts, like rip your eye out.
Right.
Like, Jesus was super
Yeah.
clear. The problem is with you
Right.
Not them.
and
Yeah.
not them.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
not
exactly.
There
Yeah.
is another discussion on modesty.
Oh, yeah, for
but
sure.
that is not
Yeah.
our problem.
That's a
Exactly.
good
We're
point.
saying as
Question.
men, the line is crossed. Like, you
Right.
want to post that, cool. I just not following you.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Straight up.
Also, don't rip your eye out. That is an analogy.
Yeah, that's a hyperbole. Yeah, don't
Just,
actually.
felt like I
Don't go
should.
blind for fun.
But I think with that hyperbole, it shows the extent that you sometimes you do have to make,
Mhm.
Right.
because sometimes it's like, do I want to, you know, cause myself to stumble, or do I want to possibly hurt somebody's feelings?
Yeah.
You know, and like you know, like you said, not to disparage women, because in certain contexts, obviously there's a separate conversation
Yeah.
about modesty, and I'm not getting into that. I'm just saying for you as the guy, if you struggle with lustful thoughts and you look at who you're following and it causes you to have those thoughts, then either mute them or unfollow them or whatever, because your sin is more important than somebody else's, hurt feelings about why you feel a certain
Yeah.
way. So,
Right.
you just have to get serious about your sin. So
It's like, yeah,
in today's
exactly.
context, you unfollowing somebody might look like you gouging at your eye or cutting off your hand. Like,
Yeah, that's good.
and from a hyperbole standpoint, like you have to get practical with things that you're
Right.
struggling with. And if for you, if that's not a struggle, if that's not a sin, then
So be it.
whatever.
Yeah,
but
that's
like
right.
if it's causing you to go down a path, then you can't worry about what somebody will think if you do this.
Oh.
You have to address your own life.
It just makes me think like I don't know what the word would be, but like harsh consequences. Like it's like an alcoholic. An alcoholic cannot have a drink of alcohol. If you're struggling with lustful, then like lustful things, like anything that causes lust, you might as well just cut it off at the head. Just like just take it away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like that's what I was just thinking. Like,
Reeves made a good point about like real life too, and because that's like you have to live, you have to go out and interact
sure.
with people, and which means that like it's a hard issue that you have to
Yeah.
deal with God and
Yeah.
Ask for willpower, and ask for
Right.
prayer and accountability and all of that.
Yeah.
And it's a process
for sure. It's like we hadn't even said this yet. But I mean, the beach. I mean, if we're not even talk digitally, let's just talk about the beach. Everybody wears whatever they want to at the beach. So.
Don't wear sunglasses.
What? You
Don't
said
wear
don't wear sunglasses?
Yeah, that's a trick.
That's
I
a
learned.
good one.
I,
If you don't wear sunglasses, your eyes can't wander.
Yeah, that's good.
There's a verse I just remembered that when I read it for the first time really helped me in this area. 1 Corinthians 6, starting in verse 18, like flee from sexual immorality. All other sins a person commits is outside one's body, but whoever sins sexually sins against their own body. Literally says sexual sin like it has a greater consequence essentially than all other sins. Like realizing what you are doing to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the consequences of that, like it's more than just a moment of struggle or whatever. Like it has real consequences and it really hurts
It's internal.
It hurts how you view women, your
Right.
consequences in your future marriage,
Right.
relationships with all women.
Yeah.
Like it just had the weight of the consequences of our sexual sin are
Yeah.
so big.
It is.
You know, part Daddy.
And that helped me go, oh wow, like
You
I
need to-
have to really check myself because this is not just affecting myself.
Right.
Yeah.
It
Let's
is
read-
affecting myself greatly.
Let's read 19 and 20, as it says, "Or do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you? For you are from God. You are not your own. You were bought with a price, so glorify God with your body." So remembering what you said of that first part is like what that sin does, but know there was a price paid for you that's way more worth than hurting somebody's feelings or unfollowing somebody or protecting your eyes, whatever it may be. So yeah, that was I've got that highlighted asterisk on the
I
one.
want to ask a question to everybody. I've just thought of this. I feel like obviously we all deal with lust, but like thank God I don't deal with a lot of the same things I used to deal with. But I feel like when you like let lust like take in like your life, like kind of take a grip on you, or you like struggling watching porn and things like that, I feel like that's probably that's what I was gonna ask everybody. I feel like that's a big thing that causes a lot of people, or at least for me back in that time, like being numb like to things, like numb to like the Lord, or like numb to like how you view people and talk to people. I feel like you cannot there's like some type of block that like creates you to view situations and conversations like in a totally different space than like I can right now with like a clear mind. Like I'm not saying I'm perfect, I'm just saying like a clear mind. Like I'm not visualizing like everything. I feel like when you get obsessed and get into the lustful things, like you visualize a lot of things sexually or like this and that, like just in a very like twisted mind. I don't know. Just kind of a thought I had.
Yeah. I think that was with any sin.
Yeah.
Like anything,
Right.
anytime you're like continually sinning,
Right.
and it's like what where it talks about like the searing of your morals, like any sin that you're have ongoing,
Right.
it's gonna like numb you.
Right.
And we're supposed to
Well, because you're
live
gonna
fully.
feed, feed that, whether it's through porn or music or
Right.
movies,
Right,
or
right,
like
right.
your tolerance for that is just gonna slowly. And it's the same with alcohol. It's like if you build up this tolerance, then you'll be able to drink more. It's like
Right.
if you're addicted to pornography, then you're not gonna feel bad for watching this show or for listening
Yeah.
to this song. It's
Right.
like it's just kind of a slippery slope of like, yeah, if you divulge in that, then other things are slowly gonna, you won't be probably as patient. You won't have self-control, like like what the Bible talks about.
Yeah.
You won't probably be living in peace because you'll be thinking about sex all the time and drinking and alcohol, and it's like so it just kind of
I don't know. It's just
breeds
like that
those
question.
things.
Yeah.
Took me back to like let's just say 16, and just like thinking about all I was struggling with, like thinking about now how like there's no way then I could treat and love my wife the same Like if I was doing those same things, like I just like think
for
to
sure.
myself now, like it's just so it's different.
Yeah.
It's like a
Well,
whole
tying this
thing.
question into the one we talked about earlier, I just encourage you, if you're listening, to try to rid this as much as you can before you do get in a serious relationship, because the last thing that you want to bring into your dating, your engagement, your marriage is just having a life consumed with having these lustful thoughts.
Right.
So that's key word on my past from earlier. Let that be your past and become a new person. And you're still gonna stumble, you're still gonna mess up, but it's just what does that stumble look like? What does the struggle look like? Does it look like you actively fighting against it, or does it look like you giving into it and just embracing it at times? Because you are going to mess up, you are going to stumble. We all sin. We all still struggle with with these things from time to time. But the struggle looks different than what it used to. If I had the lustful thought, then I'd go watch porn. I wouldn't feel bad at all. Then I would go probably watch this movie, and I'd go back in my car. Then I'd probably go smoke weed. So it's like that's what the struggle looked like for me. But the struggle now, it's if I have this thought, then I verbally say no. I turn my phone off. There's things that you do that you're actively fighting against it. You're not necessarily just giving into it and letting it overtake you. So confide in other people. I think just get guys around you that you can confess things with, because that's we talked about that the last week in James. Confess your sins to another so that you may be healed. So confess your sins to your brothers,
Right.
to your friends. We're all going through similar things, and
Yeah, one of the best things I ever heard about lust, and I know y'all me and Reeves don't have children, but y'all can attest to this. Like one of the best things I ever heard of is like if you really break it down, like lusting and stuff. Like let's say you're lusting after whoever, whatever that looks like for you. I'm just saying, like somebody said, think about people that you lust after, like porn and everything and all that, whatever. It's like that's somebody's daughter. All right, y'all all have daughters. And it's like viewing that and like breaking it down to the thing, like you're viewing someone that was created in God's image and they have a father, whether their father's in their life or not, and then like they're getting exploited and you're taking it into your possession and like committing the sin against yourself. And I feel like if you take yourself to that place, it's like if y'all's daughters, like you would never want someone to view. And just like Luke said earlier, like who would you, or like somebody said in here, like who would you want to date your daughter? Like who would you want like the man to be? So I feel like taking all that baggage into it, I'm just like thinking to myself, like, it's just kind of sad that like the world is okay with like exploiting like people's daughters, just like if you're exploiting people's sons, like it's the same thing. It's just like kind of sad. It's sad how acceptable everything has gotten to.
well, that was a great discussion. Thank you so much for you all being here. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned next week as we have our last episode of this season of the Portman Podcast. So stay tuned next week, and we're going to dive into more of y'all's questions and hopefully be able to answer them. Thank you so much for joining.